Good morning, Bam. We're live. Great guest today for the show. Timing couldn't be any more perfect. If my volume is too loud for you guys, let me know. I can adjust it. Yesterday, some people were complaining that the headset's off. Dang, look at your hair.
What?
You look good. You look good.
Dude, I got all dressed up for you.
I know you it's the CrossFit Games. Everyone went to the barber, the beauty salon, got the hydration cream on the skin. Look at you.
No way. This is all you. It takes me back to 2013 and the first question you ever mentioned to me.
Which was what?
You said, do you have any tattoos?
Oh, perfect. Very penetrating. Penetrating.
Well, I was like, who is this guy?
Hey, nothing's changed. Yesterday, I was staring at a naked Jason Hopper and Dallin Peppers. They got geared up for Go Ruck. Not a single tattoo on those canvases. Virgin canvases.
Really?
Beautiful skin, buff bodies. Not a single tattoo. Yeah.
I like that you took a peek. I like that.
Oh, hey, it's all for. I didn't want to, but it's part of the job.
Okay.
Some
Okay.
incredible events. Chris Hinshaw is an expert in all things CrossFit, but he has a deep passion and obsession with running, swimming, and biking. And he's worked with the best of them. But Chris, before we start, I just want to talk a little bit about quickly your childhood and your journey, just really quick, if you could tell us through running, biking, swimming, and then how you got into CrossFit. Just a quick synopsis in case anyone's never met you before. I know we've gone through this ad nauseum, but I'd appreciate it if you do it again.
Sure. Grew up in a house that was filled with athletes. I have two sisters, brother. My dad, when he was 40 years old, had, I think, 18 world records in swimming. So I grew up as a swimmer. But I was a late bloomer. I was by far the weakest in the household. Got into the sport of triathlons when I was 18 years old. My second triathlon I ever did was Kona, so a full Ironman distance race. And I found my calling. I found that I was decent at going hard for long amounts of time. I placed second in Kona overall. I got second in world championships. I've won Ironman Brazil. I mean, I raced a lot. You race a lot, I think you're going to win a lot. Got into CrossFit in 2008. Started coaching elite CrossFit athletes in 2012, 2013. And since then, I've helped put 36 people on the podium. I mean, in first place, not the podium, but in first. I don't know what's on the podium, but a lot of people since 2013.
So 36 of the first place finishes at the CrossFit Games you have worked with on their running and swimming and biking.
That's correct. Yes.
And did you say you won Kona?
Second.
Crazy. And Kona's the big Ironman.
Yes, the original one. Yep.
That's the one that used to be on ABC Wide World of Sports, right? And you'd see people just like crawling across the finish line. That was like the craziest event in the world back then.
That was Julie Moss, back in the day. Yep, that was it. And people still crawl across the finish line. I mean, it's one of those events that's truly devastating. I mean, we're talking about temperature here in Fort Worth, but good athletes in Kona, they start their marathon around 1 p.m. across the lava fields of Hawaii, and temperatures there are comparable. They're hot, and you're still producing sub 2:45 marathon times after a 2.4 mile swim and 112 mile bike ride.
And back in 2012 and 2013, when you came on the scene, I do believe that Jordan Gravatt made a video about you, about how basically being just in those modalities had, I don't want to say crippled, that's a little hyperbole, but those modalities had basically, so much work on those modalities had really limited your physicality. And then you found CrossFit, and this world-class Ironman athlete went through this crazy transformation, and you fell in love with CrossFit. It was basically a rehab for you. CrossFit became your rehab.
That's well said, and that is true. Like, I couldn't get my right side working with my left side, and Annie Sakamoto was the one that introduced me. So one of the original CrossFit girls introduced me to the sport. When the original space that Glassman had was moving into Santa Cruz Central, is when I got involved, and that's how I met Annie. It's interesting to me that I carry that experience of finding CrossFit today in the way I coach. That I look back on my career as a triathlete, and I was good, but I could have been better. And that is an obligation as a coach that we should all carry. That your career will end, but as a coach, will that athlete you work with in 10 years say I could have been better? And I never, ever want an athlete to feel that way, because that window will be gone and you'll never get that time back. And imagine you sit there and think, if only I knew something different, if
Mm.
only I paid attention. And yeah, that's a heavy burden. But as coaches, that is the responsibility I think that we all should carry.
And it was undoubtedly back at that time across the world, it was unanimous that whoever won that race was the fittest person in the world.
Oof.
Like if you won the Ironman in the 80s or 90s, I mean, you were the guy, right?
It was because of the ability to endure. So if you never go far, if you never push like beyond, like 2 hours or 3 hours, you don't realize the things that actually happen to the body, that how negative thought can propagate and take and grip you and ruin whatever thought process you may have, whatever projections you may have. It becomes more emotional, it becomes more mental. It's not as physical as people think it is. And so, if you really want a true test of finding out what your outer limits are, what you're capable of doing, that's the test. And I didn't know that until much later in life. That when people ask me about doing certain things, hey Chris, you want to do a 60-hour adventure race? Yeah, no problem. I'll do it, because I know what I can do. I know what the human body can do. And it's not uncommon where I'll have top level people contact me and they just did a 100-mile, running event, and they're crying. And this is one of the toughest human beings on earth, and they're crying. And the person, their spouse, is contacting me and going, "This is the most gnarly human being on earth, and he's crying." Totally normal.
Although the CrossFit Games athletes do get a break in between these, 13 events, that is something that's not talked about or not experienced by the fans at all. It's an individual experience, but it's a crazy emotional journey, right?
Oh my God! If you go back where the athletes are, and you go there like on a, like let's say Saturday afternoon, you'll
Yeah,
see tears, lots of
yeah,
tears.
yeah.
And it's emotion. That's what it is. It's emotion. The games is so stressful for these athletes because you've been taking all of your work for an entire year, and it's all right now. Well, what if it doesn't go your way? What if something like you just made a tactical error, or let's say in the first event, on Thursday, you get boxed out, and next thing you know, you're 2 minutes down. That's a bummer. And you see tears from that. And that's the worst kind of mistake. But you tack on all of the volume that they're doing on Thursday and Friday and Saturday, it becomes highly emotional. This is an endurance competition unlike any other out there.
So that brings us to our first event. The first event is a run. What we're guessing the run is there's a lake, a man-made lake. They're going to run
Yep.
halfway around the lake, according to what we can see from the barbell spin, which is about 3.5 miles. And then from
Yep.
there, they're going to jump in the water and swim back to the starting line, which is a little over half a mile swim. I think I saw 0.55. Um, First event, I guess let's just dig in. What are the implications that it's the first event? Is this all? This seems to always be the first event at the CrossFit Games, right? Some sort of run or swim or long event.
And that's why I love this event. So I've been out to the venue twice. I went out there on Tuesday morning, early. So when it was supposed to be, race start time, just to check temperature. And I've got to say that the venue and where this is being held is legit. It is so well done. It's not amateur hour. It's not trying to make something work that shouldn't be there. This is truly set up for what it's intended to be. It's a 3.5-mile run, supposedly, into a half a mile swim. That lake swim, the water is pleasant. It's not hot, but it's warm. and there is no current in it. There's no wind. It is going to be like glass. So you'll have no issues at all coming off of that run into the water. It's going to be an amazing test. But the nice thing about it is like where you run, it's a 12-foot wide concrete trail that's brand new. And it just snakes around this lake and it's going through trees, over bridges. It's pristine. I couldn't think of any other best like type of structure for a first event to kick off the games than this. Athletes, if they have put in their work, meaning running, they're going to do well in this event. You're not going to have any trouble, any excuses, tactical issues. You'll be able to showcase the work that you put in. And that's what I love. There's going to be no mistakes. It's going to truly showcase the people that have put in their time. And if you're a good runner, you're going to have a good opportunity here because of the way in which you're snaking through trees. That meaning athletes can disappear. And that's a major deal. A lot of people don't realize how valuable that is. But if you can't see me, then how do you know if I'm
Mm.
not just 30 seconds up the road or 3 minutes up the road? Out of sight, out of mind is a big deal.
And you want to be that guy, right? You want to be out of sight. That is a good strategy. Oh,
Absolutely. And so if you're smart, you're going to get away. You're going to break the elastic and get away so that you get, let's say, 100 meters in front of somebody. Now that you're out of sight and they're not thinking about you because you can't calculate a split. And what's so interesting about the sport of CrossFit, as soon as the person in front of you is no longer an option, then you start worrying about what's behind you.
mm.
And that is a very, very unique thing about this sport is you become suddenly more concerned about your positioning and who's going to catch you in preservation of points. That you see that in the Olympics, right? You saw it in the women's road race where there was 4 women and there's only 3 medals. And so who's going to take a risk? Well, nobody is. Because what if you blow yourself up before the finish line? You've got to protect your position. You want the medal. And so, yeah, that it changes people's behavior and you see it all the time. I don't want to mess it up because I still got 2 more days of competition, they'll be thinking. And in this one, it's event one.
And,
Yeah,
and
I love it.
we've heard Matt talk about how he used that strategy on runs. If there was a turn or some sort of obstacle, he would accelerate so that when the runner behind him came around the corner, he wouldn't be
That's
there.
correct.
And that's the kind
Yeah,
of strategy you're talking about, right?
that's correct. Yeah, I mean, Matt, the beauty of him. So we started working together in 2014 at January 15, and until he retired, and he was a student of the game. I'll never forget that we were at the Hawaiian Trail Run one year, and we were having a conversation. And he's like, "Hey, man, I have a favor." Well, what's that? And he says, "Just I was hoping that maybe you just work with me as
Mm.
the only male." And I'm like, "Well, why
Wow.
is that?" And he says, "I just don't want people to know what I know."
Right.
And that's what athletes you're competing here, but what Frazier had was an advantage of knowledge. And I always tell people, you don't know what you don't know. Imagine you're competing against somebody that has an arsenal of weapons that you don't even know exist.
Mm.
Like one of the pieces I've talked about before is Frazier had the ability of watching people breathe and the cadence of their breath and monitoring the cadence of the breath, right? If it's fast, he knew when you were hyperventilating. Well, if you were 6 lanes over and you still had, you know, a distance to go where that was not considered like a good strategy, he knew you weren't even a contender. Yet you were thinking he's threatened by you. You're not even in the game and you think that you are. That's what I mean by you don't know what you don't know. And Frazier was the most brilliant athlete to come ever into the sport. Brilliant.
Uh, let me ask you this. Let me try to throw a wrench in the system. So, two of the slowest athletes to come out of the semifinal event were Colt Mertens and Brent Fikowski, and it was event number one. And I know it wasn't a long run. I can't remember if it was 600 or 800 meters. And then you came in and you did some cleans, 10 cleans, and it was 5 rounds of that. And so what these guys did is they obviously paced it incredibly well. I think literally they were last. They were in that last pack of 5 or 6
Yep.
athletes. And then by the third round, those guys came up to the front. I want to say Colton ends up getting fourth in that event.
Yep.
Any concern that how do you use that strategy of being out in front? First, is this a significantly different event because there aren't those
Yeah, it is.
breaks, built-in breaks?
Yep.
But how do you pace but also get out in the front?
So when you do a mixed modality workout, it presents a whole series of complications. So if you're doing, for example, 10 clean and jerks that are relatively heavy, but you could still move through them quickly, because of all the muscles that are being activated and you're activating fast twitch fibers, you're going to produce a significant level of fatigue. You're also going to have a significant demand for oxygen, which is going to cause your heart rate to soar. So if you were not patient, especially at the start of that semifinal workout, your heart rate was going to go into the 180s and high 180s. And now you got to go out for a run. If you don't slow down on the run and allow your heart rate to recover, to get down below your lactate threshold, your maximum sustainable pace, in about 3 minutes, you're going to pop. And that's what you saw all the time. Athletes have to be aware that it takes a little bit of time for your aerobic system to turn on. So at 3, 2, 1, go, you could throttle for a good 10 seconds and use that phosphagen system. But then your aerobic system takes upwards of 60, maybe up to 90 seconds. So you're getting anaerobic energy, which is flooding your body with lactic acid, and that acidity is going to cause some damage to you. You have to be patient from that 10-second point until your aerobic system fully turns on.
Mm,
Once it
mm.
turns on and you establish your rhythm of the breath, you're free to fly. But athletes make a huge mistake by thinking they could just go full gas. And eventually, you got to pay that back. So, athletes that have an amazing aerobic system, right, that have been really working on their ability to endure, their ability to recover, also goes with that. So those athletes, if they sprint real hard for 200 meters, 300 meters to get that clean air, they're the ones that will recover fastest because they have the highest maximum sustainable pace. So they don't have to slow down as much. And so every athlete will have to slow some, but in the fastest athletes, it won't even look like they're slowing because their recovery is so robust.
Hey, did you just describe what a second wind is?
No,
Did you
a second wind is a little bit different.
It is different. It's not that when your aerobic system turns on like you were saying.
Oh, so that is a very unique phenomenon. Is that there is a natural rhythm when you run that syncs with your breathing, and so if you could establish that rhythm, the brain will know when the next dose of oxygen is coming in, the inhale, and that's your source of energy. If your breathing is random, meaning your cadence of your breath is like, let's say I take a cycle of breath every 4 steps, and then the next time it's 6 steps, and then I'm 8 steps, and then 5 steps. The brain doesn't know if I'm going to go into a 1 minute breath hold. And the brain is responsible for the recruitment of my muscle fibers. Well, the brain has to know when the next dose of energy to fuel those muscle fibers is coming in. And if your breathing pattern is random, then you would never establish what you're calling a second wind.
Uh,
That
uh.
second wind is where you all of a sudden it feels effortless because the brain knows when all this oxygen is coming in on a reliable and predictable pattern, and it makes that running infinitely easier. I'll have people contact me. I don't know what happened. I just set a PR that I can't even believe I did it because maybe on accident they established this rhythm. Now, all of the good athletes, I mean, anybody that I've worked with out there knows precisely what their breath is. They know when their breathing cadence has gone into a hyperventilation mode and they use the breath as the tell. If you're running side by side with them, they're evaluating your breath and how you're doing. The breath is the tell. So last year at the games, I'm with Dave Castro, and the running pass for the cross country run, and it was the teens and masters heats, and I can hear people's breath as they run past, the cadence of the breath, the speed of it, and know precisely if that person's a threat. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I want to know if, these leaders are going to be here on the next lap." And he's all, but how? How? And it's the speed of the breath. If you're hyperventilating, you know that speed. And that's a skill that I have. And I found it interesting that Dave didn't know about that. It goes back to what we said at the start. You don't know what you don't know.
Right. The other day, I drug my boy out to the garage and I said, "Hey, do you want to set the world record for burpees?" And he said, "Sure." I'm like, "Hey, you got to find a pace." And of course, he's 9, so that didn't mean anything to him. And he comes out, and his first 15 are frantic, almost like he's holding his breath.
Yeah.
And then the next 15, he slows down. And then at
Yeah.
about 30 burpees, he just I could tell, like you were saying, his breath and his burpees, they were in some sort of perfect synchronicity. He did 100 burpees in 3:52, but it looked like he
Yeah.
was going to fall
Wow.
between 15 and 30. Yeah, it was crazy. Between 15
Wow.
and 30, it looked like he was done, Chris, right? Like like between 15 and 30, he was already, like, I could tell, making sounds that, like, he
Yeah.
was ready to tap.
Yep.
And but he found something, and then he just got into his rhythm. And then, of course, at the very end, with the last 10, I said, "You only have 10 left." He went back into frantic mode, right? Which was
Yep.
probably
Bringing it
smart.
home.
Yeah, bring it home. Just like, fuck it, go back to holding your
Yep.
breath or whatever he's doing, and he just nailed the last 15 in a few seconds, or the last 10. Um,
Yep.
so okay, um, another piece I want to ask you about, and feel free to jump in anywhere. Let's talk about that surface. You talk about it being beautiful, but you also say it's concrete. Does that
Right.
is that should they be thinking about the surface at all for this 3.5 mile run?
No. Nope.
No.
Nope. The beautiful thing is that you don't have to worry about where your foot strike is going to occur. You don't have to be so attentive to what your surface and what you're running on. Running on concrete, it's no big deal. I mean, versus trail and damage. I mean, yeah, it is. I would not want to train on concrete, but I would love to race on it because it is a hard surface, and what it's going to do is translate into power output. So I love it. These athletes are going to be taking massive risk all weekend, and the damage that they're going to do to the body is going to be significant. But this is what you do. It's not time for amateur hour. If you have to go down a mountain pass at 60 kilometers or 60 miles an hour, you do it. You take
Right.
risks because this is your job. And so that's what you'll see. You'll see athletes in this event one taking substantial risk because it's event one. You have to. And that's why I love
Um,
it. I really love the way in which the structure is occurring, because there is so much hinge work, all the way through event 7, that this will light the fuse, and it's not going to back up until event 7, at least, this damage.
Let's talk about the start. In the
Yeah.
past, we have seen mass starts, and when I say mass, I
Yep.
mean all 79 athletes, boys and girls, are pretty much together, and it's
I love
just
it.
in especially in an event like this, it's not a race, the men against the men or the women against the women. It's everyone against everyone, and I
Yep.
want to say that we've seen women in these types of settings pass the men, even if they had a little bit of a delayed start. Do we have any
Yep.
idea how they're going to start here,
What's funny is
or
that
what would be your guess?
so I every now and then will text back and forth with Dave, and he was asking me about, like, what's my thought on the 1600, and I told him, like, of what I look at it from a different perspective. And I did tell him, I said, what I really like is this event one and the way it was structured and the fact that you're letting all 80 people go. But I told him, I said, I really hope that you have these athletes line up shoulder to shoulder, cross country style, 80 across. And then what we have is a run up where it then bottlenecks onto the trail. And so you give every athlete a chance, if they want to actually sprint that, let's say, opening, 200 meters before it bottlenecks, really take a risk and get that clean air. And all of a sudden it just went silent. There was, he never wrote back on that. I really hope that it's not just stacked up where you have, the seated, the people from last year, that podium finishers, and they're on the front row. And then you could be a great runner and you're 15 rows back and now you're pinched.
Even though there's chip timers, that's still, even though it's the start for people isn't until it's different. You know what's interesting, Chris? So you're a competitor and you're a fan. I think, and this is a huge generalization, and I'm okay if I'm wrong with it. I think the fans want to see the mass start.
Yep, me too.
I think the athletes do not want to. The majority of the athletes do not want to see the mass start.
Well, because there's two options on the mass start if they do it the way I'm saying. You're going to start on where the finish line is on that boat ramp, and imagine you're lined up across, and now you have to run up that boat ramp, and it's a 150-meter sprint up to the boat ramp, and then you're going to make a left turn and you're going to go onto this trail. That is so stressful for an athlete to think that they're about to do a 3.5-mile run. I mean, you got to partition it, because you're not treating this as one event. It is a max effort run because of the way in which you could recover when you hit the water. There's a difference of a vertical versus a horizontal, right, in terms of heart rate reduction. And so the problem will be is, imagine, just like the 10 clean and jerks that we talked about, your heart rate is going to be in that 150 meters where you can't be patient. You're going to have to go. It goes against everything that you should do. And yet you're going to be forced to do something. And that is very uncomfortable for an athlete. And that's a test. If he starts everybody out where it's just like you have no option but to just wait and be patient until it thins out and then you can make your way through, that's easy for an athlete, other than they're going to get, maybe miss the lead pack taken off if you're a good runner. You see, there's a unique phenomenon in running where if you, at 3, 2, 1, go, the lead pack goes, and you miss the lead pack, you're now in a different pack. You're going to readjust your true ability to run based upon the group that you're with. So essentially, you're going to feel the same level of fatigue. You're going to feel the same level of intensity as the lead group, except you're just going a lot slower. So
wow,
as an athlete, and this is the part that is difficult for me to watch, is it was unfair that and if like, and I'm not saying Dave would know, but does he know that happens in the sport of running, that you settle with the group you're with? It's not like you're going to be like, oh, I just got screwed. I got stuck in the back row, 25 rows back, and now I'm an F1 car and I snake my way through. That's not how it works. You just established your new group.
And in the semifinals, you got that weightlifting that mitigated that issue.
That's correct.
We don't have that. We don't have that here.
That's correct, because you have to remember that if you do a clean and jerk, where is that oxygen going? It's going to the muscles that are moving. So when you transition into the movement of running, there's about a 30-second lag between movements until you're at full capacity again. So in that lag, that's where you see an opportunity. There isn't any opportunity here because it's the same movement. Yeah, and that's what makes it tricky. Yeah, that's why the start matters a lot. It matters.
Sebon Chase is throwing money. Ask the question. Shut the fuck up. Don't tell me what to do. Oh, Chase, hi. Chris, different or similar in this event's stimulus compared to the run swim in 2017 for the athletes?
It's very similar, with the exception, there's a big difference of going from a run to a swim, right, versus swim into run. So if you have to do, for example, a swim into the run, your blood is all fueling your upper body, and it's difficult to get out of the water. And you'll see this for new triathletes. If they've never really done this before, what will happen is they'll get and they'll go up the boat ramp and they'll start their run into a transition area, and it could be a long transition where they have to run, and they're lightheaded, they're dizzy. It's because their legs are being forced to run, yet there's no support from the oxygen delivery system. And so that doesn't occur if you go from a run into a swim. if I was doing this event back in the day, I would be full gas until I hit the water. I wouldn't slow down in the slightest bit. I wouldn't even be thinking about it. But if I go the opposite way, I have to think about it. My behavior is different. I'm going to have to think about, as I get closer to the shore, accelerating my kick, backing off of my upper body, and priming my legs for what's about to occur. That doesn't occur that way by going run into swim, because when you run, you recover much faster in the water horizontally, right? It's easier to move blood. Versus now I'm standing and running, it's much harder for circulation to occur. So that's why I love this format. Now, an amazing twist would be, what if it does the opposite of what barbell spin says? It's a swim into a run. Now, oh my God, that would be a twist of twists. And I think about it all the time, because that video that HQ produced, if you look at it close, that swimmer is starting from where everybody thinks the swim finishes, and he's going the opposite way. Right now, I don't think logistically, I mean, when they do these events, they make them very simple from a logistic standpoint.
Right.
But that would be a whole different animal. Now, imagine you're a good swimmer and you got away. You're never going to get caught.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
so. Do you think that does that change
win.
the winner? Would that change the winner?
Absolutely. Fikowski would win in that case. A fast swimmer is going to dominate. And that's not going to happen this time. So, because if you get away, how does Fikowski know you're 30 seconds up or 2 minutes up? He doesn't. He's going to show up at the water. He's going to look out and now have to realize, oh, okay, you know what? I got it made, or I'm screwed. He wouldn't have that at all. A fast swimmer going swim into is a massive advantage. That's why I was a good swimmer. So in triathlons, I was always in first place on the bike, and that's a massive advantage. Anybody that comes next to me, I just go, versus having to come and catch people. It is very, very difficult to catch people. You settle.
For these athletes that train CrossFit, I've been told that this swim is long. And from my understanding, that if you get in the water a minute before someone else, that doesn't mean you're winning. That there's lots of room to pass in the swimming. Is that true? Just because of the different skill levels in the swimming? That the first guy in the water is not necessarily going to be the winner, not even close.
There is a big difference between swimming in a pool and swimming in a lake or the ocean. There is a big difference.
But just going back, you don't think this is a long swim, though? You think I mischaracterized that?
Okay. I think it's very close to 800 meters.
Isn't that like, how many minutes is that for the average guy, the average CrossFitter? Is that going to be 15 minutes? 10 minutes?
Yeah, about 15 minutes. So
okay.
A good, like Matt Frazier was, he swam like in a pool. His consistent speed was 1 minute and 35 seconds every 100 meters.
Okay.
On the slower side, athletes that are at the CrossFit Games are 155 per 100 meters.
Okay.
So there's your range. So if you took a Fikowski, let's say is 125 per 100 meters, he's going to gain 10 seconds on a Frazier. Well, that per 100, that's 80 seconds. And so but the skill set of when you go into a lake changes. It's not pool swimming. There are elements that if you're not comfortable, like for example, me, if you put me in the ocean, like when I did Ironman Brazil, it was 1.2 miles straight offshore. You were in the deep, dark, black water. And like I said, I'm a decent swimmer. And so I had probably a 90-second lead coming out of the water. By the time I hit the turnaround point, I had no idea that I'm not afraid of sharks. I'm not afraid. That doesn't bother me at all. I've spent so much time in the ocean in my life. And I've been around big water animals and stuff and done shark dives and all of that. I'm not afraid of it at all. But when I turned and I start heading back to South America, when there's waves in the ocean and you're that far offshore, you can't see the continent. It's gone. And that was the first time I've ever been afraid. Like, And that's not going to happen here. There is no element of fear. You're never going to have, a concern where you're going to choke water. The water is not cold, so you're not going to have any of that, which a lot of these athletes suffer with. They really do. The amount that reach out to me when it's cold, that the panic that they have, that will not happen. It is such a safe event overall. If they line up buoys properly, no, I don't think that there's any issues that any.
It's more like a swim pool than an ocean swim.
Oh
For
my
sure.
God, it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. And
I've
the
heard it's
entry
even
points
too
and
warm.
exits.
I've heard the water's too warm, actually.
Please, you know what? I really hope no one says that, athletes, because outside communities, they listen. It's like, really? Races aren't done in Texas all year round? Of course they are.
Well, okay, let me
I
rephrase that. It's
cringe.
not ideal. That it would be nicer for the athletes if it was cooler. No, you disagree. It's good.
Yeah, it's not that hot. No, please.
Wow, when you turn
No.
to the side, you look like Mike Wallace. That's crazy.
You know what? I did this for you and this for you. So I'm like,
God, you look
yeah,
good.
no, much
Yeah, you
respect
look
for
like
you, man.
you
So do
like
you.
Mike Wallace. Okay. Okay, so I want we have a lot to talk about. We still have one more event, but I want to talk about the transition too. So
Yeah,
you come to the end of the run, and these guys will be in shorts and tennis shoes and socks,
dude,
maybe
I better not be wearing socks.
no socks, a
I
baby
mean,
powder in the shoe if you're running without socks.
no.
No.
I mean, I hear people have sensitive feet, but come on,
Okay,
it's
and
time
then
to get race ready. Yeah,
you get there, and do you take a break? Do you rest for 10 seconds? Do you take your shoes off
no,
slowly to build in a break? Do you lollygag, or is it just like
that's a
throw
great
your
question.
shoes, throw them away, you don't give a fuck, go?
So it's not quite clear on what's going to happen as far as a transition area, but definitely Dave thinks about this of because we can't have chaos. And if you don't want 80 pairs of shoes, and whose are they, right? And
Right.
so there may be tubs. They maybe have one side of the road is women, one side is men, and it just goes from 40 down to one. Hopefully they don't have the first tub would be the first place person from last year. It's you want to take your shoes off as close to the start of the swim as possible. So the key is that you want to be really pushing your intensity. Like I said earlier, if I was doing this, I would be full gas pedal um, all the way until the start of the swim. So, like you said about your son, remember when? So the last 10 burpees, like when he was pushing to the finish line,
Right.
you don't have a finishing kick at the end of this run. So you're not sending your heart rate soaring as if you were, pushing the last 2 to 3 minutes in this event. You're not experiencing that. You're really sitting at your maximum sustainable pace. And that's what makes this so easy. You run 3.5 miles, you can only do what your maximum sustainable pace allows you to do. So you're going to stay right there on that line, and hopefully you hit the water right there on the line. Too much slowing is it doesn't provide you any value at all. You're going to go right back in the water and you're right back at your maximum sustainable pace. So you don't slow down, but the key is you want to make sure tactically you're aware of the transition and what you're going to do, because people make mistakes. Like I worked with Carl Webb 2017, 2018, the year after she got second place. And um, my heart breaks for her because she loses the CrossFit Games by 2 points. Do you know that she put socks on that run swim run in 2017 and lost a place, which cost her the
Wow.
CrossFit Games for socks? And so
Wow.
you as a coach, imagine the burden that you didn't think about that. Now it wasn't she wasn't with me at the then, but that's heart wrenching. That's a
So
heart wrenching piece, and you're not aware of your transition and the value it can provide or take away.
so you're telling me that she gets out of the water and she puts socks and shoes on instead of just yanking on a pair of shoes and someone passes her?
A lot of people put socks on. I mean, I worked with Sarah Sigmund's daughter that year, and she got fifth in that run swim run. And before that, I said, "Are you going to wear socks?" And she said, "Have to. I got sensitive feet." And I'm all, okay. So you and I, we were at Rich Froning Senior's pond. Let's
Mhm.
do a swim, run up to the barn. I'll put my shoes on with no socks. You put your socks on. And I showed her how to put socks on. There is a way that it's almost like a condom, right? You roll it up your foot. And so it's fast.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And
So
so
you
I
pre
showed
you
her how
prep
to
so
do
you
it.
prep your sock.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why
Like a donut, you roll it like a donut,
that's
or
right. And you just put
like
it
a
on the end.
condom would be.
That's correct. And you just roll
Okay.
it up the ankle. And it's fast, but I could put on a pair of shoes like Froning. Froning, if you asked him, he could put on a pair of shoes in under 5 seconds, like 3 seconds. It's fast. And so we did this, and we got out of the barn and hopped on bikes. And I was 200 meters down the road before she exited the barn. I come
Wow.
back on my bike, and she's like, "Yeah, not wearing socks." Because if you give away that 200 meters, how are you going to make it up? You're going to go
Right.
200 meters faster? You
Mm.
can't. I'm gone. And so these athletes, they're professionals. You have to make sure that the days of 2013 where you could make gross mistakes and still finish in the top three are over. You can't make mistakes because you're competing against people that are truly skilled in every aspect of that event. And so if you're not aware of what you're thinking about in that transition, you're going to lose. If you're not aware of when you should start thinking about that transition, meaning in that run, at what point should you start thinking about putting your swim cap on? At what point should you reach for your goggles if you're carrying them? If you're not aware of that, you're going to lose because you're competing against people that know.
And as you get into the water, so you ideally you would run, you get as close as you can to the water, the shoes would come off, a shirt would come off, you would enter the water, you
No
would
shirt.
no shirt, don't even run with the shirt.
Why?
Okay.
A little
Right. Okay.
sunburn? Come on.
So then the women should be running in whatever top they're comfortable they're swimming in also.
That's correct. Yep.
And then or go topless. And then they should enter the
Yep.
water, and then you should be aware that there's going to be a 30-second window where your body is. Don't panic. Be aware that your body is now taking blood and shifting places where it's needed. And in that
Patient.
30 seconds, really concentrate on getting your breathing and your stroke in sync, and not be concerned with the fact that there might be some discomfort or something as the body transitions from the legs to the upper body.
Correct. Except imagine now that when I run, I breathe every 4 steps, right? So that's my cycle of breathing. Imagine if you're a good swimmer and you're aware of your running cadence, meaning your breath, right? So four count, it would be a step, exhale, then 1, 2, 3, ha, 1, 2, 3, ha. Well, imagine if you now know that if you go into the water, you want to maintain that consistency, right? Because anytime you change your breathing, for example, if something you have to lift, for example, a clean and jerk and it's heavy, you have to hold your breath, meaning you can't maintain your breathing rhythm. The brain's not aware of when the next dose is coming, which makes that lift even harder for you. So my point is imagine I'm on a 4 count breathing cadence when I run, and then I go to a swim, which I'm like this, right? I go breath, 1, 2, 3, breath, 1, 2, 3, breath. It's the same. There's no transition. Well, imagine you're not even aware of a running breathing cadence, let alone a swimming cadence, and you're
Mm,
competing against somebody
mm.
that actually has them synced.
You're in the
And that's what
dark.
you're then that's the problem is that you must establish your breathing rhythm first. And imagine you're breathing because you bilateral breathe, right, which is a 6 count, and your running is a 4 count. Well, you're going to have a longer transition time against somebody who's already figured out that they're going to go from a 4 to a 4.
Chris, so we've talked about the run. You should reach your maximum level of sustainable intensity. You should enter the water
Yep.
seamlessly with as little things to worry about as possible. If you're not running barefoot, get the shoes off and get in. And then you're
Yep.
swimming, and in your cadence, you should be aware of your breath and get your cadence and your breathing synced. And then as you come to the finish line, for swimmers, um, what's the distance when they should be like, okay, wheels off the bus, just floor it?
So They have to be aware, like we said, of migrating the blood, the oxygen-rich blood to the legs. So what I would advise anybody is you need to start accelerating to kick some. When you're
Okay.
about
Okay.
50 meters to shore, you need to start thinking about standing, especially if someone's next to you, because you're going to have to sprint. And the key will be is being aware of how far you have to sprint. So the very first thing that an athlete should look at is, when I exit the water, where's the finish line? Because that's what you're thinking about. You're aware of that. So I tell athletes 50 meters in, start thinking about transitioning the blood, accelerating the kick, and be aware of the length of the sprint. Now, the question is that when do you stand? And what's nice about this exit is it's a boat ramp, and boat ramps, they are gradual for a small amount, but then it gets deep fast. So you're not going to be able to see the bottom and think, oh, I could stand. That's what you see all the time when people do like ocean swimming, and they'll come in and they'll see the bottom and they'll stand way too early, and they're wading their way in. You don't stand until when you're swimming and your fingertip touches the ground.
Wow.
You
Okay.
That's the cue. And
So
and
wash
that
ashore.
yeah, because what you're doing is you're much faster swimming than wading in when it's waist deep.
Okay.
And you see
Okay.
this all the time.
Yep.
A good swimmer never stands
I can relate to it just
until
being a kid, right? You're playing out in the waves, and then you come in and you're just like fighting with the waves instead of like just
yep,
surfing in the little wave and
yep,
wash ashore.
exactly. Same thing.
Uh, uh, Gracie Walton, is she such a better swimmer than everyone else that this is a no-brainer? Does the best swimmer in the field win this?
Yeah, because here's the thing: is that swimming is truly one of the pieces where confidence matters. It really does matter. A lot of people, if you're when you get hypoxic in water, there is a level of fear that surfaces, because if anything else on dry land and you come into trouble because of extreme exertion, you could stop and recover. And you always know that it's sitting there as a backup plan. I could just stop and sit down and recover. I'm
Right.
okay.
Right.
That is not an option. You will
Mm,
die. And so you're always aware of your level of fatigue. Well, what if all of a sudden something happens where you get, hit in the back of the head
mm.
by a swimmer next to you? But it's very dangerous side by side with CrossFit athletes, because they don't know swimming etiquette. They're not that good of a swimmer, and you're going to get banged up. And these guys are big. And
Yep.
so the damage, like, I've been hit, and it's a move that you see all the time in triathlons. If you didn't play water polo, then you're not an advantage. But I've been elbowed back, in the face, and it happens all the time.
We hear about it
Where
every time there's a swim at the CrossFit Games. Someone got
and
kicked in the face. Someone
it will
swam over
happen.
some, just right over someone. I'd never even heard of
Yep.
that. They just swim
Well,
right over the
it's
top of you and push you down.
because they're
Imagine having Jason Hopper swim over you.
right. And imagine he's sitting there thinking, what the heck is happening? He's
Right.
thinking, I'm getting tangled up in somebody, and he doesn't know, like, who
Right.
started it. And
Right.
so that's the problem, is that imagine getting hit in the face, or then you swallow water. Then all of a sudden panic comes over. And that is a massive problem. Good swimmers, it's not even a thought. I'm never going to choke. If you hit me in the face, I'm okay. I got it. That won't be a problem, because I've experienced in water polo in high school days. And I, that is a massive advantage. Once fear takes hold in the water, it's hard to get rid of.
So
And
you're
when
saying
fear takes over, you shallow breathe, right? Your level of fatigue dramatically changes.
so you're saying that Gracie Walton, not everyone can feels confident finding their maximum sustainability running, because nothing can really go wrong, like
Right,
life threatening. But you're saying
right.
Gracie has so much experience in the water, she's going to find that quicker and be more
Yep,
comfortable flirting with the edge, and therefore, and then on top of that, being just such a proficient swimmer that it's going to give her huge advantage. Now, what
yep,
about Lazar Jukic? Spent 10 years in the water as a kid.
yep,
Also has shown himself to be one of the best runners in the field.
yep.
Is he your pick for the men?
Um, No, but
No.
he's not my pick.
Okay.
But he's good. I think that he's very talented. I did hear that he ran the 3.5 miles and did the entire swim with his brother.
Okay.
So that's an advantage. To know that swim is an advantage. He does have an advantage in the water for sure. Um,
And his running's amazing too, right? He seems to be top 5 in these running events.
yes, but the sport's evolving. The sport is shifting into a space of proficiency that I have never seen. The competency level of these athletes is shifting, and if you plateaued 2 years ago, the sport's passing you by.
Right,
There
right,
is,
right.
and so I always look for that. I call it, the trajectory of an athlete. Are you continuing to improve? Like you take a Jeff Adler. Uh, I've been talking to a couple of different people, and they were assessing the 550-yard sprint and looking at that 550-yard sprint from way back when, and looking at, can we use that to predict people's times in the 1600, as well as can you predict their 3.5 mile time? Well, Jeff Adler, his running times back then, I mean, were it's almost laughable. Um, Jeff Adler, when I was up in Montreal with him in a workout, I programmed. So the workout was 500 meters in 145, a minute of rest, 500 meters in 145, 2 minutes of rest. Do that 2 times, and then I said run 1609 meters in 455 to 457, and he looked at it and ran 456 in a workout. Now I've never seen that before. That's where the sport's evolving. Like Adler did a 1932 5K and never got his heart rate above 156. Well,
Wow.
I was in Las Vegas with our girl Alex Kazan, and Ricky Garrard was there. I saw him do 10 by 800 meters, and his last one was 229. 800 meters in 229 at the end of 10 of them.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. Wow.
Okay. Yeah, that's nuts. So do you have a pick for the men?
I don't. The key is going to be like someone like a Fikowski, if he is able to maintain contact, um, it, it, that will be the key. If he
Meaning
lets
he
people,
gets in the water with either first or if he gets in the water first, your money's on him no matter what?
if he's within a minute, I think he stands a good chance.
Wow. Wow.
If it's longer than that, here's the thing on swimming is that you don't have the same emotional distress in running because you're not looking at the people in front of you. They just magically appear and then you pass them. And so you're just swimming and that's all you're doing. And that's what's beautiful about it. You're not thinking of your place and where they are. You can't do checkpoints and like, oh, they're 7 seconds ahead of me. Now they're 6 seconds ahead. You don't do any of that. You just swim. And because he's a good open water swimmer, that is an advantage. Um, and so even if like a Ricky Garrard or like a good runner hits the water first, like Holstead, like if they hit the water first, there is a lot of variables that will impact their ability to perform in the water. Fikowski doesn't have that problem. So it just depends how close he is. If he's within a minute, he'll probably catch him. Now, Roman's another dark horse for me. Um, I worked with Roman when he back in 2018. Since then, and since he moved to Mayhem, I didn't because Mayhem, of course, has a whole team of people. But the time I worked with Roman, he was without question one of the most competent runners and swimmers in the entire CrossFit field. Roman, of course, was not back then strong, and he had to work on his strength. And part of building strength, he's put on mass. Mass is something that significantly affects, right? That sprung weight matters in running. And so that's an unknown for me. If Fikowski can outswim Roman. So it just depends on how fast Roman, if it's the Roman of several years ago, he's going to dominate. I would say that he could win this. If it was the 2019, 2020, 2021 Roman, he'd win. But carrying 225 pounds versus 200 pounds is significant in the
Huge.
sport of running. It's massive, right? They say it's 1 second per pound per mile. Well, okay, that's a lot. That's a lot. So that's why this event is so interesting to me. If it was wide open, like for example, the Capitol event, it was the same 3.5 miles, but there was no like adjustments during the run. It pretty much, when you flipped that pig and you started running, there was a little bit of transitions, right? And then it settled because you were always seeing the person in front of you the entire time. This isn't that way. Out of sight, out of mind. And it's a real thing. That's why you see it in the Tour de France. How'd that person get 30 minutes? Because you couldn't see them.
That happened this year? Someone had a 30-minute lead?
It happens all the time. I mean, they know where they are and it's always controlled, right? They're always aware of who's out in front and you know, whether or not they're in contention. But when you're out of sight, there is a dramatic shift that occurs in the mentality of the people behind. And what's nice about this is that you enter the trees on that run halfway through, and it's all turns. So imagine you're out in front where you got clean open road, you could run tangent to tangent, you're making time.
I want to switch to the sprint. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the
No,
run swim? No, okay, great.
nope,
Thank you.
nope. I
Okay.
love the event though. Love it.
Let me see if I can find this clip. Is this it? Okay. Let me play this really quick. Let people see what event we're talking about. This is the event on Friday night. Is this event 6?
6.
6? Okay. Here we go. CrossFit Games event 6. The write-up here says it's a 1,600-meter run, then a 50-yard sprint, 50-yard bag carry, 75-yard sprint, 75-yard bag carry, 100-yard sprint. 70 pounds for the women, 100 for the men.
Still got it. Still got it. Place chairs for the.
So this is the demo team running on the track here. They're off with the sprint. So we know that it's going to be a beautiful running surface, right? As good as it gets.
Yep, that's a nice track.
And then we see
Nice
the
field.
sprints. The sprints
It's
are
first
on
class.
AstroTurf. We know that there's a turnaround point right here. So you get to run straight the entire time once you start each segment. There's no shuttle component to it.
So you're going down and back 3 times. The weights of these objects are not heavy.
And Chris, and what I'm hearing is, and tell me if you're hearing the same, I don't know if it says it on this post or not, that basically they have 12 minutes to do the mile. And
That's
at the
correct.
12-minute
Well, it's not a
mark,
mile. So it's not a it's not a mile. It's a
it's
mile
not
609. So it's 4 laps.
a mile is not 4 laps.
No,
Uh,
no, it's
o-
9 meters further. Yeah.
oh, okay. So just shy of a mile is
Just
9
so
meters further.
right, just so the viewers don't pick on me about it. He doesn't even know what
Okay,
4
yeah.
mile is.
Totally. I can get away with
Yeah,
that. You cannot, as an expert. Okay, so just shy of a mile.
that's right. I love it.
Okay.
4 laps around the track. I mean, it's I'm really surprised that Dave did this.
Me too. I've
And
asked him in the past, and he said it'll never happen. This is like 10 years ago.
yeah, I so it's interesting to me. You know, Dave's daughter is in high school, and she's fast. Like she's a legit runner. And when we were talking in semifinals, he mentioned to me that she ran 5:30 mile, and I'm like, and she's 15,
Yeah.
is legit.
I
She's
think
the
I went
real
to that
deal.
race, and he's obsessed with her. He spends a lot of time training with her. He's obsessed with her running.
And I wonder if that influenced him because she is legitimately at her age and with his knowledge, right, of
Mhm.
keeping her balanced, making sure that strength matters, right? Because imagine she gets strength along with her aerobic abilities. That is she should be going sub 5 soon. I mean, she hasn't hit maturity right at that age. And
No,
so
no, she looks like a tall beanpole still. She looks like a little girl. Yeah.
yeah, so I was most impressed. That is a very, very, very fast time for someone who is not taking it as seriously as kids that have been doing it for a long, long time. Yeah, her upside is big, and as a parent myself, you get sucked into those things where it does influence you. Like I got my parents both doing the sport of triathlons. Then my sister did it, and then my brother did it. My brother and sister held the swim record in Kona for years,
Wow.
and that's how it works in families, right? That's why you probably, your kids start skateboarding and you skateboard, and
No,
so
but
that's
I
how
like what you're thinking.
so that's how it works. And so I commend him because it is something that other sports athletes look at. They'll look at these times and they'll just say, "Oh, how good are they?" And there's always comparisons. And I always thought, "Oh, Dave doesn't want other sports to compare." But
That's what I thought
th-
too. That was my guess, that he didn't want to expose the CrossFit athletes and people start picking on them. I thought he was kind of like protecting them. Like, hey, what if the
yeah,
fastest CrossFit Games athlete has a 6:05 mile? Everyone's going to laugh.
right. Like he did a 550-yard run. Now, I thought that he was going to have him run around, a Greyhound track because Greyhounds run 550 yards,
Oh,
but he
okay.
didn't. Right? Like there was nothing. Was it because he doesn't want to run 400 meters? Does he not want to run 600 meters?
Hmm.
And so I applaud him for this. I do find it interesting that it was a sprint into the run, and that to me would showcase extremely poor performances in the 1600
Hmm.
because of the damage in that sprint and the lack of recovery time. Even for a great endurance athlete, they're still going to significantly underperform in their 1600. It would be at least a minimum of 12 seconds in that 1600 slower. If they had a minimum of 3 minutes of rest, they're going to be 12 seconds slower.
So you
And
think he
so
went 1600 first?
I think he tried it and he realized that these times suck.
Okay. And so
That the
hey, let's
demo team.
let the athlete show off
That's what I think.
the
And
best. Okay.
you're going to see multiple people running sub 5 with this approach, even
No
as it's
shit.
event 6.
Uh,
Yeah, I
uh,
think so.
uh, and what about on the women's side? What are some, will we see people get close to 5 minutes?
I mean, what's really interesting is I do think semifinals was more cardio based, endurance based, longer time domain based. And I think that there is more endurance based athletes in this field, men and women, than there ever has been. There is such great female runners in this sport that at the games this year. Like, for example, in event 1, that 3.5 miles, there's great runners in there, women, great. And so in this run, you will see a bunch. 520 is considered good for a CrossFit Games female, 520 mile. And you'll see, I'd say 15 under that, 10, 15 under 520.
Wow.
That's what I bet.
And
Now, there's a lot of damage before. I'm sorry to interrupt you. There's a lot
go ahead.
of damage being done before this. For example, event 3 and event 4, the amount of damage being done to the posterior chain, to the hip flexors, it's going to be significant. And so the question is how much of that damage, when they do run on Friday night on the 6th event, is going to be with them, and it's not going to be affecting them until really that final finishing lap. The other piece that's going to be a variable is when they run the 1500, for example, in the Olympics, there's 9 lanes and there's 14 people. Well, if you have 7 lanes, which this track has, and it's a first class track. I mean, what Dave picked, it's world class. There is no excuses on anything. Like if you want to set a personal best, that's the track.
Mm.
But here's the problem is that in that video, you see he is starting it where you would start a mile, you start before the turn. Well, he should, with 7 lanes, have 10 people. If he has more than 10 with a CrossFit athlete, I mean, Olympians go down in these events. 1,500 meters, you'll see athletes fall all the time. They'll trip. CrossFit athletes don't train this way, and they're going to bunch up and they're going to be in a pack. There's not going to be the skill set. And if he has more than 10 people, the people are going to go down. They're going to go down.
So you're not looking for a mass start on this?
Jesus Christ, I hope not. No way. No, it's more than 10 people. I'm worried. I think that it's, especially if you think about it, if by then the highest seeded people will be in the final heat. So you're going to have the top 10 people going after it in 4 laps around the track. And at 3, 2, 1, go, they're in the turn. And the reason why I bring it up is because so 400 meters on a track is the inside tape. So if you're lining up, it's the rail. That's where 400 meters is. And so when you run on a track, it's always longer than 400 meters because you're outside. Well, the second tape line, the between lane 1 and lane 2, is about 7.5 meters further around than the inside. So imagine now you're on the third tape, which is between lane 2 and 3. That's 15 meters. Well, in one turn, that's 7 meters. That's a second, at least, 1.5 seconds. Now imagine you're squeezed not on the second or third tape, but you're like out at the 5th tape.
Right.
You don't want to be there.
You're hosed.
You really are. And so now what do? Where do you pass? And so you don't want it to be where a good athlete, because of the logistics of the event, got robbed from a placing. And I know a lot of people will say, well, just go faster at the start and sprint it out. Yeah, but you're giving someone an advantage by being in an inside lane that you're not going to necessarily have. Everybody should have a fair shot.
As opposed to the lake, where they're just all on one starting line and it bottlenecks.
Well, yeah. So what you'll see is and if you go back to that video, you can see it at the start. Like if you don't play it, there is the line, which is the finish line, where they're starting. But you will see an arced line that will arc into the turn. And so what you will line up on is on that arc. And so people that will be in lane 7 will be on the outer. So see the arc just starting there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in reality, and this is what the mistake is, that person who is on that third tape between lane 2 and 3 should be forward about a foot on that arc.
Okay.
Because it now is fair. Right now, the way it stands is the person that's on the inside, I think that's Sydney Wells, she has a 1 foot head start over that outside person. That's not fair. So hopefully someone's telling him, you got to get people on the arc. And so now the person in lane 7 has a shot.
You're thinking 4 heats, 10 people each max.
I think it'd be fair. And that would be considered, that would be safe. If they fall, then that's on the athlete. They just don't have enough skill set.
And so if they're moving really fast, that would be 15 minutes around, just for easy math. So that'd be 1 hour to run all the men and 1 hour to run all the women, 2 hours out for the fans to be out at the track. That would be nice.
I heard 90 minutes. And so what you would do is you
heard the whole event is 90. You heard the whole event's 90 minutes.
I mean, but who knows what, you hear all kinds of things, right?
Yeah. How would they do that? Because if it takes 12 minutes,
stage people, you would stage people on the sprint. They would just be in a corral waiting for their turn on the sprint.
Okay. Any advice for the athletes in terms of pacing this?
If you don't know what you're doing now, it's too late. Yeah, it's too late. But the key is that you want to make sure. Oh, it does say 2.5. Oh, so was it just? So I just saw my Heidi showed me a schedule. She said it's now at 2.5 hours. So
okay, so that makes sense.
One by one.
Yeah, and then there'll be a break in the middle for people to go pee and eat, and yeah, that's great.
I hope they have the whole thing. I hope they have
Yeah.
people up and down the aisles, doing beers and hot dogs. I mean, what an
Yeah.
event that's going to be. Yeah.
Yeah. This is
So
going to be amazing.
it's going to be awesome and really incredible, because tactics will come in here. There's going to be a lot of athletes that are going to establish their dominance and get out in front, because they're not pack runners. And so to be safe, where's your option? It's either in front or in back. Well, back is not an option. And so you will see a lot of athletes going out hot, really hot. Like, take, for example, a sprinter, someone who is strong, that's got strength and power output, right? And they're good in short time domains. This athlete, for them to do a sub 5-minute pace for one lap around the track is going to be effortless. And so with all this adrenaline rush, they'll just find themselves magically in front, but they did their first 400 meters in 75 seconds, and now they're going to blow up. They'll eventually fade. Athletes have to be aware of their ability. They have to be aware of that. This is going to, though, be tactical. You may not see the fastest runner win because of the tactics. So let's say, for example, Saban, you and I were competing, but you're a sprinter and I'm an endurance athlete. So if it comes down to the last 200 meters and we're side by side, you're going to win, unless I soften you, unless I take surges and I push the pace. And so what I do is I take away your sprint. Tactics come into events like this. And if you're sophisticated and know your skill set, you're going to damage the people that are with you so that you're going to end up winning tactically. You may not see the fastest runner necessarily win, because you're not going to have the whole track to yourself. You've got it maybe with 9 other people. And that changes things a lot, because maybe you're going to be 3 wide in the turn for 2 laps.
Right.
Now you're cooked.
What about consideration for the second part of the event?
That's the trickiest part. Like, when he did this shift, it changed the entire structure. Like, so if you think about that first event, if you're a sprinter and you do the sprint first, you're going to win. So
right.
Guy Harris, like, there's the guy. I would pick him to win that event, but he's not going to win it now, because he's not going to remember, sprinters don't recover well. They don't. And so even if you get 12 minutes after that, it's not enough time. It's going to take away the speed. And that's what's interesting, is that it's now going to come down who's the fittest. And
they're only going to really get like
that,
5 or 6. They're only going to get 5 or 6 minutes, right? Because in that 12 minutes, they're all going to run their miles between, 5 and 7 minutes, and then they'll have another 5 minutes to recover. Is that significant? Is 5 minutes enough time to recover after running, a PR on your mile? No, it's not.
No, but the person who recovers better has the advantage in going into the next event. And we saw this in 2016 when Dave, and I think that, and I told Dave this, it was what he did when he did the handstand walk across the soccer field in Carson, and then he did a shuttle sprint, and then he had people take that heavy plow, right, which was a strength endurance piece, across the field and back. When I saw that announced, it was so magnificently programmed that I told Dave, there's no one that smart. There's nobody that is aware of what that, because people thought it was a handstand walk. So it's upper body fatigue. And then you're going to go into a shuttle sprint, which is a speed endurance type event, like Cole Sager, a running back at UW. Should have dominated that event, but he got 16th, 18th place in the shuttle sprint. People talk about Frazier, like, did well in that, right? He got 2nd place, and Tia, like, wins the shuttle sprint. Endurance athletes. How? Because that wasn't a test of doing a handstand walk across the field into a speed endurance, into a strength endurance. It was who could recover the best in between the events. So when you look at Frazier's time, for example, so there was a shuttle sprint back in, I think, 2012. And you look at the meters per second in both of those, Frazier would have gotten, I think, 35th that year, but he got 2nd. How? Was it because his run was fast? Well, no, he would have gotten 35th. Did everybody else get slow? From 2012 to 2016? No, it was testing athletes' ability to recover. And if you weren't patient in that handstand walk, that fatigue, even though it wasn't the legs, that acidity transfers into the bloodstream and the legs are pre-fatigued. And so that's going to happen here. That's what this is really testing. And so what you're going to want to watch as a fan, what are athletes doing during that time? If you don't have a recovery protocol, you're not going to do well. You must know precisely what you're doing in that amount of time. How long are you sitting for? How long are you walking around for? What are you doing within that walk matters. If you don't have it, you're not going to do well. That's going to be interesting for me.
Do you have advice as a general recovery protocol?
You have to. So recovery is one of the pieces that you have to practice, because the body needs to know when you enter recovery. Like, let's say, for example, you have a workout and you get 1 minute of rest. Well, what do you do during that 1 minute matters. But if it's every time random, like Conor McGregor, he's the worst, because every time when he did 5 minutes of fighting, his recovery for that minute was different. Sometimes he'd walk around, sometimes he'd be seated, sometimes he'd lean against the cage, sometimes he'd be in an isometric squat, sometimes he'd be talking, sometimes drinking. It was random. Recovery is not where you want random. You need to know, the body does, oh, we're resting. And the purpose of our rest is to put us in the best position for the next interval. You have to practice this. You have to have a protocol. And so if you haven't been practicing, the body's not going to know it's rest. And so you're going to go into an athlete for that sprint who is in a better position to win. You have to train your recovery.
So literally, when you say, if you don't know, it may be too late, you're saying that you haven't practiced it.
That's right. I mean, I see that all the time. I mean, back in the day, I mean, the aerobic capacity seminar, I back in 2013 and 14, and the protocol after an event is you want to hop on an echo bike. And the reason why you hop on an echo bike is because of all the muscles that are being activated. And there's an intensity that recruits these slow twitch fibers. And slow twitch fibers, what happens after an event is they take that lactate that has been dumped into the body from the high intensity, and the slow twitch fibers consume that lactate as a fuel, meaning it helps slow twitch fibers contract and move while you're on that echo bike. It helps you pedal. But as you consume that lactate as a fuel, it takes the acidity, those fatigue-causing metabolites, and they leave the body, they burn it off together. So when the slow twitch fibers consumes that lactate as a fuel, it takes the metabolites, those fatigue-causing metabolites, and removes it, burns it off. So a good post-workout active recovery protocol is getting on an echo bike, and you can remove that lactic acid in a good 20 minutes versus an hour, which puts you in a better position for the next workout. But you have to train it. And I would go up in the athlete area back, then, and I was like, wow, yeah, I see you, like, you're riding this assault bike, and, how'd you learn this? And he said, oh, no, I see Rich doing it here, and so that's why I'm doing it. All that's doing is making that athlete more tired.
Oh, because they haven't practiced it.
Right.
So what if can you give a recommendation for what people should do, or is it's whatever protocol you've already established?
I mean, no, so there is a way. So you want to think of recovery in 3 parts. So the very first thing you do is you get control of your breathing. What you're going to be doing is hyperventilating. I mean, what's beautiful about the 1600 is it's going to be truly a legit effort. You're going to see people's maximum ability. They're going to go full gas on this thing. So you will see a finishing kick. You'll see people start to take risk and really starting to show the confidence they have in their ability at the end of the 3rd lap. That's where you're going to see moves. And that's when people will begin truly hyperventilating. You'll see that. You'll hear it in their breath. So the recommendation is that I would have is that you got to start taking everybody athlete that's doing it right at the end of the 3rd lap. It's time to take risk. This is where you have growth as an athlete, courage, because that, if you do it, that's how you become confident. So you start making a move there. Somewhere around 150 to go, it's time to bring it home, meaning your finishing kick. You will
150,
be.
you mean 150 meters? With 150 meters to go, you spend it all.
Yeah, a lot of people think like, oh, I could go further out than that. You're not a runner. You got to remember, like, yeah, okay, you just watch someone run the 1500 at the Olympic Games, and it's like, no, that's not you. You don't have that capacity,
Right.
right? And so you got to temper it a little bit. You can't follow. That's why you can't get an elite running coach that coaches Olympians in CrossFit. They don't understand what the sport is, that you're going to have an athlete that runs 2 times a week. And yeah, I can make a 200-pound guy run sub 5 2 times a week, and that's enough. They don't understand. And so you got to make sure that you know your own ability. Sprinting at max effort for 150 is far. It's far. If you start 200 out, good luck. It's never going to happen. It's too far. So at the end, you're going to be hyperventilating. The very first thing you must do is, first, you may lay on the ground, right? And we'll see a bunch of that. You will see no people in a deep isometric squat trying to recover. They'll be laying on the ground, which is proper. You want to make it so that you're trying to recover and get control of the breath. That's the most important piece. And what you watch for. So, Saban, when you're watching somebody and they're, what will happen is this: you go, and then all of a sudden you'll go, you'll see a big sigh.
Yeah, yeah.
If I was a coach, that's when I would start communicating until I see the sigh. And then they'll go back to hyperventilating. They're not capable of hearing anything until you see that. All right. So that's what I watch for first. Now they could take on information. Until then, don't waste your time. That's the time that you say, start slow down the breathing, deep, slow breaths, get in control of the breath to at least get back to that 4 count cadence that we talked about. As soon as you're out of 4 count, you're back in control. And that's what you're trying to look at, is you're back in control. Now,
What's
once you're in,
what's the 4 count? What did you
it's
call
when you're
that?
going, so it'd be ha, then 1, 2, 3, ha, 1, 2, 3,
Okay.
ha, 1, 2, 3, ha. Like that kind of a
Okay.
cadence. You're back in control of the breath. This is where you will be able to communicate as an athlete. When you're back in control, you're able to express words. Now it's time to change whatever you're doing, which may be sitting on the ground. Now you must move. You've got to keep those slow twitch fibers active. You've got to keep those slow twitch fibers consuming that lactate and those fatigue causing properties, that acidity. You've got to move some. And that's the key. What are you going to be able to do during that next 5 minutes matters, because the more you could flush out that acidity, the less you have in the muscles that are being used in that sprint. Now, the last thing that you do is the third, is you get the brain.
Really quick, going back to that one. When you say move, let's assume there aren't bikes there.
No, you
So
walk.
so you walk.
Because,
Okay,
yeah,
just walking.
highest
Okay.
concentration is in the muscles you use. So it will be in the bloodstream, absolutely. And when it's in the bloodstream, you could do anything. That's why the Echo Bike works. But
Okay.
the highest concentration of this acidity is in the muscles you just used, the largest muscle group in the body, the legs. So you want to keep the legs moving. You want to keep them moving, and so that you can clear as much as possible, right? That's what an active recovery is. It's clearance of that acidity. So the last thing you want to do is to be seated. But you see people doing isometric squats, right, where they're not moving anything, and that's like, I don't understand that either. You want to move.
What do you
The
mean? They're
last
just just crouched and kind of like hunched
Yep.
over, just at the
No,
bottom
hunched over
resting.
is fine. Hunched over is fine is when you're in a deep squat.
Okay.
We see that all the time in the sport. Even by games
Okay.
athletes, you'll see it where they recover in a deep squat. Well, that's like recovering on a rope climb where you're holding onto the rope. Like, that's you don't want to do an isometric hold,
Okay.
for recovery. That's not, no. So what the last thing you want to do is get the head in the game. So when you're lined up, what is the first thing I'm about to do in the sprint, so you don't mess that up? And what's nice about this is that it's just a 5-step acceleration. Or what foot are you putting pressure on when at 3, 2, 1, go?
So start
And that's what you're
visualizing the
thinking about.
next event while you're walking around when you can.
No,
50-yard
with the
sprint.
last five,
No?
no, with the last 5 seconds. Last 5 seconds, you would put your head back in the game and think about the next sprint. That's what you would do. So you walk around to keep the slow twitch fibers moving until about 5 seconds remaining, and then it's time to go.
Okay.
Time to get the head in the game. Head in the game.
What about ice? Should you have ice on your back, ice on your legs? Should you be pulling
It
on some sort of
depends.
sleeves that ices your legs?
Yeah, so that's a whole nother piece that matters, right? So like you'll see maybe cooling mitts. You
Right.
will see people putting like ice on the back of their neck, right? Because the head is a major area of cooling. The temperature will be warm. The sun's still going to be, most likely up for almost every heat. And so the heat will matter, but not in the 1600. It takes a good, upwards of 15 minutes for your core temperature to truly react to an outside temperature above 100 degrees. And so we will see it above 100 degrees, but it won't affect the athletes in the 1600. So cooling
You know
will
what's interesting
matter.
about that? You know what's interesting about that? So maybe being in the first heat is really going to be helpful here. So you're not just outside
It
hanging out for.
depends. It depends. Like if they have them in a air conditioned room, um, if they're in an air conditioned room, these athletes are going to be primed, and it's not going to affect them in that 1600 at all. Like I wouldn't. I don't, but it will affect them in the sprint. Now, what's beautiful about the sprint and what's the true skill set of a CrossFitter is what we call their tolerance to this acidity. And what I mean by that is that if you don't get rid of this acidity, these fatigue causing metabolites, which they're going to have after the 1600, then what ultimately it does is interferes with the muscle's ability to function. So if you don't slow down and remove it, the body shuts you down. And it's a self-protection mechanism, and it's beautiful the body does this. But what a CrossFit athlete, by doing high intensity training, is they have developed an ability to keep the muscles functioning under extremely high levels of acidity. I mean, Michael Phelps, when he swam, this was the reason why he can get out of the water after getting a gold medal, do a short cool down, and go back in and get another gold medal. He was in a non-sustainable pace, meaning his acidity levels were above lactate threshold. He was in a death zone, but because of his tolerance and ability to keep the muscles functioning in that non-sustainable pace, he was able to get another gold medal. And CrossFitters are better. Their ability to tolerate high levels of fatigue and keep the muscles at full capacity is unlike any other athlete out there. They're very, very skilled in this. And so the damage from the first event, they will suffer for sure. And it will be very difficult to sprint on them. But their abilities to tolerate fatigue is phenomenal. It's what we're about to see in performances is it's something that people will be watching for a while. Look at these
Chris,
the skill set.
So I want to go over two things real quick. So sprint the last 150 meters.
Yep.
Get control of your breath.
Yep. Walk around.
Get that deep breath. Then your coach
Yep.
can talk to you. Walk around.
Yep.
And then there was some disconnect I was having at the end there. And then while you're walking around, let's say by the time you stand up and you're walking around, you have 4 minutes to walk around. In that
Yep.
4 minutes you're walking around and you're getting in, you're running this lactic acid out of your body, or this metabolite thing you're talking about.
Yep.
You're saying you shouldn't be visualizing the sprint?
Nope, you're trying to recover, and so you don't need the brain involved yet. Disconnect the brain and just walk around and just
Okay.
Because your body. Here's the beautiful thing: is that where athletes make a mistake, they don't put their head into the game when they're about to start the workout. So you have to, in the last 5 seconds, where you're at getting ready to go, what am I going to do first?
Okay.
As soon as the fuse is lit, they're so skilled, the body just takes over. And so this is a phenomenon that a lot of athletes don't realize, is that When you go into your home gym and train, the brain is very comfortable. But when you come to a competition, the brain doesn't know where you are. So the brain is messing with you. The brain's getting in the muscles' way of doing what they've been trained to do. When you show up in competition, the brain is the thing that messes with all the athletes. That's why you see athletes underperform, because they hit the stage and it's like, where am I? So what you need to do is disconnect the brain, because the brain's not needed. My muscles are already prepped from the year of work I've done. So don't cloud up my thought process. All I need to do is get my brain involved with 5 seconds before the start of that sprint, so I know what I'm doing first. As soon as the fuse is lit, my muscles know what to do. And that's the key. The last piece in your recovery protocol, there's three: get control of the breath, move around, keep flushing that lactate, and then get the brain involved, and then start that sprint, and you'll be fine.
Is it a uh is it a mischaracterization to call this second part of the workout a sprint? Is that a mischaracterization?
It definitely is not a sprint. It's what I would
Okay.
consider, if they were fresh, I would consider it a strength endurance piece. It
So
requires
would you
strength.
maximum sustainability again? Do you have to find, is that what this is? Just like you just have to find your ability where you can sustain, and then it's only a sprint. Is that last 100-yard piece a sprint?
It will be, but it's more of a tolerance piece. So it's what we call strength endurance. So it requires strength and the ability to go long, to endure. So a sprint is something short. This is not short. This is it requires an ability to endure. It's far,
Yeah, it is far. That's what I was thinking. Okay,
right?
so when you come out on that first 50-yard sprint, what I don't know how you would characterize it, but is it 90%? You stay at 90%?
Yeah, you've got to be in control, because and this is what you saw in 2016 with Frazier in that shuttle sprint, right? You had Marston running with the camera faster than Frazier, right? He's carrying a 30-pound camera hinged at the waist, but he's running as fast as Frazier. What you saw, and that's where Frazier passes everybody. What you saw was Frazier, he only had so much speed. He couldn't keep up with the Cole Sager. There's no way on earth. But what you saw was he was able to go endure, right, because of his aerobic ability, longer. And so that last 200 meters is where he truly dominated. We will see a lot of shuffling of these individual athletes in that last 200 meters. That's where this event is really going to be a big deal. It's not where you're carrying that odd object. You'll see people making moves, because that's where the wheels fall off, is that last. That's why it's so beautifully programmed. It's going to be
And
exciting. You're
and and you said a key word, you have to be in control. You do not wanna drop the bag,
no,
because you don't
no,
wanna
you
have
have
to
to
pick
pick
it
it
up
up,
again, and you don't wanna lose time.
and you have to pick it up quick. And so you're going to see, like we talked about Alex Kazan, like Tia, she's going to be great, because that bag is not going to present a problem for her. So if it's opposition, she'll be able to adjust it, and it won't affect her ability to run with it. And so a strong athlete has an advantage. They do, but they have to also be careful, because all of those odd objects, what it's going to do is accelerate your level of fatigue. So when you start that final 200 meters where you run down and back, that's going to be the real test in this event, because you have to have an ability to endure. It's long. It's not a sprint. It's what we call speed endurance. But again, the odd objects makes it strength endurance. So if you were pushing a sled, that's strength and the ability to endure. An odd object carry is strength and an ability to endure.
If they had the bag carry as the last portion is a 100-yard sprint. If they had the last portion as a bag carry, we would see the classic CrossFit, when they carry bags across the line and people
Yeah.
fall on their face or dive. I'm guessing we're not going to get that with the finish of the 100 yards. So same advice when you put that 75 when you go 75 yards with that last bag, you drop that bag and you turn around, and you should cross the finish line hyperventilating.
Oh, absolutely. And you're going to see some levels of fatigue that are just Richtering. They're going to be off the chart. Yeah, because again, it's this tolerance piece. They're going to be fatigued into that sprint quickly, but their ability to tolerate is going to send those lactate levels soaring. And so they will taste a level of blood in their mouth that they've never felt before. It's going to taste like they've got, like a roll of pennies in their mouth. It's going to be so potent and just hemorrhaging that's what will happen here because they have just gone through a 1600. Their muscles are prepared for the movement, but they're not prepared for what the intensity is. This is a true test. That last 200 meters is going to turn people inside out. The level of fatigue is going to
I
be,
love
yeah,
it.
I love
I'm
it.
sick. I love this. I'm sick.
Yeah. Hey,
Okay,
I've
this
got
event.
I'm gonna have to coach a class.
Okay, this event is free. Friday night at Farrington Field. You will be there, front row seats.
I mean, I hope. Yeah, I think it's one of the greatest. We're going to see performances that truly showcase. Watching, these men and women in the 1600 is going to blow people's mind. The competency level of these athletes is.
Who should we look for in the sprint?
In the sprint, it's really hard to say. It's really hard to say because Tia's going to dominate. Because she possesses both ends of the spectrum. She's
Because
strong
that's what
and
she
can
does.
endure. Right. And you're going to see some challenges in that sprint from someone like an Alex Kazan. But there's so many talented females running wise in this. There's 10 that are genuinely talented. That's why the 1600 is going to be great because
it's going to be great to watch Brooke Wells do this too.
Well, and if we're going to cherry pick athletes and showcase our abilities as a sport, we did it through semifinals. This is ideally suited for who qualified for the games to really flex their muscle. And that's what I like about it. It's a truly authentic test, no excuses. Show me what you can do. And I hope that they're not too damaged because I think that we could see, 10 guys, if they're not damaged, go sub 5. Like I was talking with Hopper. Hopper thinks he's running 505 and he's 225 pounds.
Crazy. Chris Hinshaw, thank you very much. Where are you teaching your class at?
CrossFit West Side. Yeah, I'm doing it with Carolyn Lambray in 8 minutes.
Can anyone go?
I think it's sold out. I think we have 50 people.
All right, love you, buddy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on last minute. Appreciate you, Mr. Hinshaw.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
I appreciate you too. Always, anytime. All right.
Chris Hinshaw. Wow. Fucking A. Wow. Okay. What am I doing with the rest of my day? That was crazy. That was a big old dose. What do I got here for you guys? All right. If you have kids near the monitor, now is not the time. Let's take a 30-second break.
Athletes focus on toning and increasing the strength of every muscle in their body, but many times they neglect an important part, their penis. Exerciser is designed to assist men that want to add penile health and fitness into their overall exercise routines. The Exerciser is the world's first and most powerful FDA-regulated hydropenis pump, which can increase penis size, improve stamina, boost blood flow, and promote overall penile health. Try it for 60 days, and if you don't love it, return it for a full refund. Use code CrossFit20 for a 20% discount.
All things fitness. Woo. And penises. I want one so bad. Yeah, I understand. Who doesn't? You gotta. Anyway. This is the greatest sponsor of all time. This is going to be so fun. There is a chance. There's a chance I'll be having Rich on today. I have to tell him, no stress, dude, at all. Totally play it by ear. Okay. At 11 a.m., I'm headed over. Oh, actually, before then. What time is it? It's 8:40 my time. I have to run over to the to run over to the venue. It looks like what am I doing? I think that there's a press. No, I think there's a media orientation at 11 a.m. God, I hope I don't screw this up. What am I doing at 11 a.m.? Please tell me you wrote this down, Sevi. I should ask Souza. Let me call Souza real quick. I think we have a media orientation at 11 a.m. That's important. I think that's really important. I go to that. And then I think hey, we're live. Hey, do we have to be at the venue we should be at the venue at 10:45, right? To do our 11 a.m. media orientation?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Is that when you're down there?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I just want to play it by ear. So if I can get Rich on for a few minutes and just shoot the shit with him, I want it to be fun for Rich though. I don't want to stress him out like he has to come on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
he'll be okay though.
I just want to chop it up with him, and
And
then
I think you want him.
okay, and then after that, I'm gonna try to head over to the athlete orientation.
Is that? Oh, are we allowed at that?
I don't know. I don't know if we are or not, but I mean, I've gone to every year I've done the behind the scenes. I've been at all the athlete orientations. I mean, I just want to stand there and like get B-roll of them in the stands, and you know what I mean. Get some sound bites from Dave or Boz or Chuck, whoever's giving the. I mean, it shouldn't be a problem. I think the only reason why it would be a problem is if some fucking other idiots were like, "It's not fair. It's not fair," because they might not have room for like all the media because it's a tight area. But like, I don't care about fair. Fuck fair.
Well, I bet you, but maybe some of them don't even show up because it said not to. So
okay.
All right, what time are you gonna get down there? 10:45.
Yeah, I'll call you when the show's over. We have plenty of time, right? It's only 8:45 now.
Yeah, it's only 8:45.
Okay. Hey, did you watch the Hinshaw interview?
Yeah, we have it on here in the living room while we're all getting breakfast together.
I had 2 cups of coffee before the interview, and it's 4 a.m. for me because of the time difference. Same for you, or it was whatever time. And I started freaking out. I don't know if you could see, but the first 20 minutes, like I OD'd on coffee. I was like freaking out. It was crazy. I was so happy when it went away. It was like an ice cream headache, but like a nervous system freak out. I had a full freak out.
You had to, but you're on live, so don't say anything crazy. Okay. And
but anyway, I hide it well. Could you tell I was freaking out? I was like short circuiting, not like it was like kind of like a weird panic attack, but with no like substance. It was weird.
Yeah, you can tell. I just thought you were itching to get some more words in there.
No, I was just tweaking. I just had too much coffee. I was just like kind of like freaking out.
That's amazing. Was it just the hotel coffee, or did you get anything?
Yeah, it was just the fucking one where you put the cartridge in. Like it's like a really cheap cartridge. It's like a big plastic tray with a bag in it.
Yeah.
And I had 2 of those, and I was like, "Whoa, dude, I am fucked up."
What time did you go to bed last night? You've been having long nights.
Yeah, midnight. I went to bed too late. I was watching anyway. I'll call you. I'm tripping on the vice president that wants to chop off people's penises. It's crazy. Yeah.
Taylor used the exerciser, and he accidentally has had a boner for the last 8 hours.
Wow. I ran the exerciser commercial for the first time on today's show.
I saw it. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Did you see my comment? They do sell previously owned ones at a discounted rate. So if anybody's looking for a deal,
that's crazy. Do they really? They don't really sell used ones, do they? Oh.
Hey, dude, wait till you see this blanket that we have. I'm gonna send you a photo of it. Pedro made it. It's amazing.
Blanket?
It's a blanket. Yeah. What'd you call it, Pedro? Throw. It's called a throw.
Is it like the AIDS quilt? Is it like have our name sewed into it?
Wait till you see it. I'm just gonna send a picture of it. You can determine if we want to show it or not.
All right. Leave it to the Irishman to bring a throw blanket. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Call me when you're done.
Okay. Bye. All right. They're over at the big Airbnb. I think JR and Taylor will be doing regular podcasts from there. Also, they'll be doing live podcasts from the spin booth, the barbell spin booth over in Vendor Village. Make sure you go over there. It's not too late to download the Heat One app and start getting your picks in. We'll talk more about that tonight, I'm sure. Talking to all 40% off, no, 20% off here, 40% off here. I love it when there's good discounts, both great discounts. By the way, there are if you want to learn more about that exerciser thing, this thing, you should not put Fit Aid in your penis pump. The penis pump's only for water. I don't think you should put Fit Aid in it. That's for drinking. The penis pump, there are some great videos out there with like testimonials. They're pretty wild. They're pretty funny. Also, thank you, Judy, for reminding me down here, Paper Street Coffee is 30% off if you use, there's a code word you need. I don't fucking know what it is. But what's more important than everything on the site is 30% off now. If you can find the code word, someone in the chat will say it in a second. You need to subscribe and buy coffee now before coffee prices get raised. Then over here, this sponsor, CA Peptides. God, they've been around forever. What a great sponsor. She takes such good care of me. They are giving away free Barrio static water with each order. Use code word Hiller or Sevon. And then BIRTHFIT. Just tickles my heart that we have them. Oh, Games 24. There it is. Games 24. There it is. All right. Probably the subject is going to sway away from CrossFit. So those of you who hate me, Chris is gone. Time for you. When you mix Paper Street Coffee, use code GAMES24 for 30% off. That window is going to be short for the highest quality, best coffee, the official coffee for Proven. The greatest CrossFit athlete in the world drinks that stuff. The greatest podcaster in the world drinks that stuff. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's not going to be 30% off forever. But that's what happens when you mix Paper Street Coffee with Patrick Rios, and James Hobart. You get a good quality video. Anything we want to talk about? Anything you guys want to shoot the shit about? Now my coffee's finally, I'm not freaking out anymore. I've settled in. It's a shame when I'm in my prime podcasting space. I'm in the zone. It would be a shame to get off. Where can I watch the games? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but what I would do is, and I'll do it for you, I would go over to the Barbell Spin Instagram account. As I've told you guys a million times, it is the fastest, most accurate, best, most comprehensive news in all of CrossFit. And then I would go over here. That's the schedule. This is the clean ladder info. There's a picture to jerk off to of John Young. They probably have somewhere in here a where to watch, but I don't know where it is. You can also go to their actual URL, and they've got tons of links there. I saw it somewhere. I think you have to chase it around a little bit. It's like the UFC was a few years ago. I think you have to I don't think you can just land on one page and watch it. I think you have to go to YouTube, then ESPN, then back to YouTube, and then ESPN. Yeah, I think, and ESPN Plus. I think it's something like that. I think you have to chase it around a little bit. God, this guy is fucking crazy. The new vice president that Kamala Harris has nominated is absolutely insane. I say that with no hyperbole. He is absolutely insane. It is not a gross exaggeration that he has set up a state in the United States where a child can go behind its parents' back and have its genitalia removed. I mean, he is a bizarre, bizarre human being. I mean, I'd put him up there with Trudeau. Yeah. He is the worst of the worst. And what he did around the George Floyd and the BLM riots was absolutely insane. Just allowing the riots to continue for 3 days and cities and businesses to be burnt down. And don't get it twisted, that didn't hurt white people. Don't get it twisted. Everything that he stands for, that he claims he stands for, it's the exact opposite. He's not there to defend any children or minorities or any struggling people. He is a horror. He is kind of like a character out of a horror film. It is truly bizarre. I don't know how they're going to hide that. From the American people. All right. Yeah, just when you thought California was bad, there's Minnesota. Yeah, it is a trip. It's been 17 days since Kamala Harris has been running for president of the United States, and she also has not given one interview. She's only done off the teleprompter talking. That's also bizarre. Tim Walt says Trump and Vance are weird, yet puts tampons in boys' restrooms. Yep, that is something else he did. He enforced that tampons be put in boys' bathrooms, even at schools, elementary schools, junior highs, high schools, all that weird shit. We are in a bizarre time period. All right. Love you guys. I will be back tonight. I don't know what the topic for the show tonight will be. Hopefully, I can get Taylor and some of the boys on over at the house. Hopefully, J.R. Howell has arrived into Texas. Matt Souza will be here. Hopefully, we can see Caleb. Caleb make a guest appearance. I think we'll have access to Tyler Watkins, Spin. I think the whole crew will have access to Pedro from Coffee Pods and Wads. Maybe we can even get some guest appearances from Will Brandstetter. So it's going to be a great show tonight. All right, guys. Love you guys. See you guys at the venue or later on the podcast. I'm not sure if there are any shows today in the middle of the day. I would not be surprised. Go ahead and check the schedule if JR and Taylor start reviewing some of the workouts that have been released and we get their opinions on them. All right. Love you guys.